Get the welcome. Welcome to episode 5 of Lando's Palace. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We started off with the trailer to the High Republic, and I am your host, Kahari Mosley. I will be joined by Lukman Abdul Salam, who is joining us in the stream as well. And we just watched the long form trailer to the High Republic, and today we're going to start off with that conversation. There was a big event on. I'm getting some feedback.
Oh, word.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of feedback there. Yeah, so um, on January 4th, there was a big announcement about the High Republic, and I got an opportunity to start listening to the audiobook Light of the Jedi this week. But it was a really cool event, I believe. I thought it was cool to meet a variety of the authors. There's 5 main authors. You have Charles Soule, who's writing Light of the Jedi, which I'm listening right now on audiobook. Justina Ireland, A Test of Courage. Claudia Gray, who's written numerous Star Wars books, Into the Dark. And then the comic books with Kevin Scott's The High Republic comic. Daniel Jose Older's The High Republic Adventures. And creative director from Lucasfilm, Michael Siglin, is like overseeing the entire project, and this is going to be happening on a variety of platforms. Marvel comics, novels, books, children's books, teen books, as well as adult books. Like adult books, obviously, in a sense of sophistication. Not con-
Right.
but yeah. So I'm listening right now to like I said, The Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule, and I'm really early into it. It deals with this concept of what they talked about on the trailers, the Great Disaster. It's this event that happens. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but there's this thing called the Starlight Beacon that the Republic is building that will allow them to, further expand, Republic territories into, the Outer Rim. And basically, as far as where I'm at it in the book and where kind of the Star Wars universe starts, I think that's kind of like the Light of the Jedi is like kind of the anchor story, to the High Republic era. Is kind of like the introduction, at least from what I understood. So that's why I jumped on that one first. And it really, gives you the feel of, an age of Renaissance. In the introduction to the book, it talks about, this is obviously the High Republic. This is not only the height of the Jedi, but this is also the height of the Republic era, an era of arts and culture and, Renaissance, you know what I'm saying? As well as an age of exploration because, part of how the Light of the Jedi starts and the whole Starlight Beacon exists is there's a kind of a Wild West or Old West feel of settlers. So at excuse me, at the time of the High Republic, there's also people settling into the Outer Rim. Much like the Western expansion of the United States, or even European, colonialism, in Asia and Africa, in the 1800s. It gives you that same kind of historical era feel of people who are in one part of a galaxy or one part of a world, kind of exploring other parts of the world that they were unfamiliar with, and kind of seeing new things, natural wonders and natural splendor that they had never seen before. Like, like the first Europeans that may have seen the Great Zimbabwe,
Right.
Victoria Falls, or when the first, settlers went out west and saw the Grand Canyon. It kind of gives you that, kind of vibe as far as the era of times that they're pulling from, for metaphors, and creative inspiration. But yeah, you know what I mean. That's kind of like just my quick update, on the High Republic. But I don't know if there's anything that you saw. I don't know if you had the opportunity to see the Lucasfilm, special event with the 5 authors, who we had mentioned, earlier. But again, you're watching episode 5 of Lando's Palace, co-host Kahari Mosley, the Lukman Abdul Salam, aka Jedi Master Luki, in the house here. So, have you heard any other stuff about this High Republic project, and what are you checking for?
Yeah, no. It's interesting because I just, the High Republic project. I just saw. I didn't see the Arthur series, but I did see some stuff about the High Republic and about George Lucas involvement in it, and them really looking to kind of forge what's going on with the High Republic into all of the canon and all of the new Star Wars shows that are coming out. Like originally, that story I think was kind of alternative to what's going on, but from what I've saw or gathered or checked out, George is definitely putting his thumb on a lot of things and on everything, and that Kathleen Kennedy is kind of on her way out on Lucasfilms. I don't know if you heard of that, Corey, or there's rumblings of that she's like kind of going to be pushed out. And with that, this High Republic series, as well as future works, are all going to be kind of coalesced together and kind of all kind of flowing together, you know what I mean? So that it wouldn't be like, one jumping, you're jumping from one time frame to another, everything is kind of flowing together, and that George is highly involved. So we'll see.
That's really interesting. I didn't hear that, you know what I mean? And like I said, the majority of this week, I was just trying to get, caught up, with, this whole, High Republic, project. Like I said, I checked out, and we'll drop it, in the comment section, the link to the actual, it's like a 45-minute event. It's actually hosted by Kathleen Kennedy, and and again, it has the 5 authors who will go over again. Charles Soule, who did Light of the Jedi, Justina Ireland, A Test of Courage. Those are kind of like the 2 novels that are, and also Claudia Gray, Into the Dark. That's kind of more so the novels that follow like the James Luceno, and kind of obviously more for the more sophisticated readers. And then Kevin Scott and Daniel Jose Older's stuff, is more comic book stuff, and also kind of looking at that kind of teen audience as well. So it's really interesting that they're trying to make sure, that all their print offerings kind of cover, the gamut of readership from young readers, to older readers as well.
Do the books, from what you're reading so far, does it in line with the stuff you read in the past? You know what I mean? Is it kind of on that same line, or is it different? Yeah. What's the difference from the books from the 2000s and 90s as opposed to what they're doing with the High Republic? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely they're trying to, definitely create a different era, a different vibe. This is a time when, at least during like Padawanship, Jedis are, allowed to have, romantic relationships.
Oh, finally, a word. Okay.
And it's kind of
they were having them anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a common occurrence that, during their Padawanships, that Padawans kind of get together and hook up, and, and kind of almost sow their royal oats, you know what I mean? And kind of get it out of their system. And then, you know what I mean? And then when they become Jedi, you know what I mean? They take on that more formal role of Jedi that we're more, accustomed to. But it appears to be a much more flexible, kind of situation. And also, like, even in Light of the Jedi, actually there hasn't, I haven't gotten to the part of the story where even the Jedi are, introduced yet. They're referred to, and, one of the young characters, in the book, is actually reading Jedi love novels, which, I would imagine are kind of like, like your nickel and dime, store, you know what I mean, kind of novels, the romance novel that you'll see on like, right by the cashier back in the day at the grocery store kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
So I think that was the kind of, what I mean, feel that they were trying to give. And so, that kind of Knights of the Round Table, chivalry, romance, I forget which comic, Prince Valiant, like the Prince Valiant comic, that kind of vibe, and, there's really no beef, it's almost like a utopia, as much as a utopia, an age of enlightenment, an age of renaissance, an age of exploration, an age of peace. You know what I mean? There's peace in the galaxy. So, so it is a different feel.
Yeah, the other ones seem like more like, like in the 90s and 2000, they kind of carried the stories, you know what I mean? Like from Return of the Jedi, right? Or they went to the Old Republic, like Plagueis and Darth Raven and stuff like that.
Right.
So this High Republic is a new era, you know what I mean? That they have a new ground with, and that they are focusing on. I've heard criticism from some Star Wars fans or whatever for as far as the art or the concept art of it. I've heard criticisms. There's criticism out there as far as some of the stories and stuff like that there. But they're pushing forward. They're pushing full head, and it's going to be out as far as the books, like Kahari said. But the information I came across with Lucasfilm, that they're really pushing forward to like kind of minimize whatever civil war is going on right now, you know what I mean, and kind of like push forward beyond that. It's not like Kathleen Kennedy's going to be out of a job or anything, but I think that they're really reorganizing things, and the new CEO over there is not playing around. Like they're looking at the Star Wars franchise as something that's like almost like a diamond, that they want to really protect, and that they really want to kind of hold line with the fans, right? So they're definitely really looking to the fans to see how this thing's going to push forward. But that's also twofold. I think a lot of times now fans feel like, all right, well, we got our voice, you know what I'm saying? So we're going to say whatever we want to say. It's almost like what happened Wednesday, right? At the Capitol building. Right.
Choose your own adventure.
Right, choose your own adventure. We're gonna go down here. We're gonna do what we need to do. We're gonna say what we need to say, and we don't care what is out there. You know what I mean? Because we're the fans and we have a say. So that's kind of out there as well. You know what I mean? As far as that element, But it's definitely a great time as far as where Star Wars is and what they're trying to do with the universe, particularly with how they're trying to blend everything and all the stories. So it'll be interesting moving forward how these stories are blended between the High Republic, the Old Republic, and as well as what's going on now. I know, Kahar, you just earlier this week you just posted something on Lando's Palace about the new timelines, which was interesting, man. You might want to share that as well. You know what I mean? As far as the new timeline, what they did with that and how they edited that.
Right. Yeah. So now with the age of the High Republic, they're kind of renaming, the errors, you know what I mean, to now it's like, the High Republic, I believe, the Fall of the Jedi, which takes you like through to like Phantom Menace, to I think the Rise of the Empire, then it's I think Return of the Jedi, and then then Rise of the First Order. You know what I mean? And and we'll post that in 1 second. Yeah, but so we're kind of restructuring, the canon, from how it was, and kind of replacing the existing stories, within this structure, and then creating space for the new stories, particularly the post Return of the Jedi, pre Force Awakens, stories that are going to come from the Mandalorian era.
Yeah, man, it really was like a clearing up for the layman. It seems like they kind of dropped that because of the new fan, or I say the new interest, I guess you could say, in the Mandalorian, and how these new fans and new interest coming to the series, and not really knowing where the series was. So I think there was a lot of questions out there, and I think that's why they dropped that, because it was interesting, because I was seeing that and I was getting that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you were too. Like, where's the
Right.
Mandalorian set? You know, and hardcore cats knew, heads really knew from the first couple
Right.
episodes of season 1, like, oh, this is
Right.
after Return of the Jedi. Okay, this is
Right.
what's going on here. Whereas a lot of people
Right.
were kind of lost and still are lost. So I think that's why they dropped that, which is, you know, definitely smart on their part. They kind of get, but what they did was they kind of re-edited certain things. You know, they kind of remixed the edges a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it's like a remix. You know.
Yep. And I can get in. I can get into that right now. You know, I was able to pull it up and also put it in the comment section. So, so now there's, you know, 6 eras. The High Republic era, you know, which is 200, you know, years before the Phantom Menace. You have the fall of the Jedi era, which is the Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, the Clone Wars, and Revenge of the Sith. You know, then you have the Reign of the Empire, which is the Bad Batch and Solo, a Star Wars story. Then you move to Age of Rebellion, you know, which is Rebels, Rogue One, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. You know, then you have the New Republic era, you know, which is the Mandalorian, you know, which would then include Rangers of the New Republic and Ahsoka. And then Rise of the First Order is Resistance, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and of course the Rise of Skywalker. You know, so that's basically the breakdown of how they're looking at, you know, the era. And obviously right now, you know, a lot of focus is going to be on the New Republic era, you know, with the Ahsoka, not miniseries, the Ahsoka series, you know, that's going to drop, as well as Rangers of the New Republic, you know, which all are going to, coalesce into a one mega, you know, ending with the Mandalorian at some point, you know, in the future. And I think that's going to then kind of set the tone, you know, for Resistance and Force Awakens, and, you know, and kind of, I think, chart a clearer path, you know, forward, you know, for that. But, you know, and also the other key element is the Bad Batch. You know, if you look at the Reign of the Empire, you know, one would imagine that's where the Order 66 movie is going to fall in. You know what I'm saying? You know, the Dark Plagueis piece probably will fall into the fall of the Jedi. So some of these rumored, you know, projects, you can kind of get a much better sense of, you know, where these different stories kind of fall. You know what I'm saying? In the you know, not these stories, but these potential stories and these rumored stories that we've heard about, whether it was Order 66 or Dark Plagueis. You can start to see where these stories might fall based on the rumors and this new configuration.
Yo, real quick, man, I got something about the Bad Batch, but I wanted to go back to what you were saying about Darth Plagueis. Even last week, the conversation we had and what you were breaking down as far as from the book and as far as the possibilities, you know, and I was thinking all week, like, that could be a real serious movie series, episode, political suspense, political thriller, you know. And it just so happens I was watching some Clone Wars this week, and I watched one of the episodes where they went to Plagueis' home world. Right?
Oh, word. Okay.
Yeah. The people that he's Anakin and Obi-Wan had to go there for a mission, right? The banking clan.
Okay. To Munilus.
Yes. It's like season 4. It's like I randomly picked it. It was like season 4 or something like that. I can't really, but it's in the Clone Wars, you know. And so his people were there. So I'm like, yo, this would be crazy. This would be a crazy episode, right? That they kind of delved into it.
Yeah. Now, because Munes are ill, you know. Munes are bankers, lawyers. They wear fly suits. They dress nice, you know.
And they're real high. They're like real high, like level high cultured. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they're like,
very
you know, sophisticated. Exactly. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you know, the cats, like, you know, got villas in the south of France type. You know, cats, you know what I mean? Listen to the best music. You know, and if you get into the Dark Plagueis, you know, they get into like you know, the Munes, you know, kind of, prejudices and frustrations with human beings. And, you know, because like Munes, you know, only deal with like the highest life forms, you know what I'm saying? Like humans and other, You know what I mean?
High intelligence. Yeah.
You know what I mean? High intelligent beings. So, and so they only do the most important roles. Like, humans, don't do like, custodial arts and, you know what I'm saying, drive cabs and things like that. And that's not dissing anybody who does that, but it's just, and they look down on human beings. They said like human beings can go from anything from, being a king to, being in the lowliest role, or just be amongst, you know what I mean? Like how, Han Solo rolls with Chewbacca. Like that's not something immune would do. You know what I'm saying? Like roll around with a Wookiee. You know what I'm saying? They would look at that like, you know what I'm saying? So it was like ill, like they're kind of, the bigotry that they have, you know what I'm saying? Toward, engaging people. So yeah, so like I think, a Dark Plagueis piece, you know what I mean, would just be, absolutely, nuts, you know what I mean? But it's interesting, like just jumping quickly back, to, the High Republic and this book, The Light of the Jedi by Charles, Soule, and it's really, fascinating so far. Again, it's about, the Starlight Beacon and the creation, of the Starlight Beacon, which would allow communication and travel from the known rims to the outer rim. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's like age of expansion. People on a regular basis are leaving the inner rim and the middle rim to go to the outer rim to chart new lives. And there's a lot of that language is in the book, so you just get that very much that, Western expansion, the America in the 1800s, somebody living in Boston deciding move to Oklahoma, you know what I mean, to start new and and start their new life. And that's kind of what's going on, in the Star Wars, universe, at the time. So it's just really interesting, seeing, how that's going to play out. And there's this thing called, again, the Great Disaster that happens. And the Great Disaster is kind of the core event that kind of ties all of the various print pieces together. It's kind of the seminal event that kind of sets things in motion, for the High Republic era. Is this thing. I don't know what it is, but I am getting closer to it. Like, there's some things happening in the book where you're getting a sense of what the Great Disaster is, but it becomes a seminal kind of moment in Star Wars history. So in a couple more chapters, that appears on the timeline of the book, I'll know exactly what, the Great Disaster is.
Interesting. It sounds like they were like, the High Republic's like the roaring, like the 20s, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like this era of like, you know what I'm saying, of high culture, you know what I mean? It's all good, you know what I mean? We're really, really like delving into like sciences and arts and things and philosophy, you know what I'm saying? Or that Greek, it seemed like they took from that Greek period or that Roman period, you know what I'm saying? Or that European classical era, It's just from the artwork, I kind of get the gist. This is from what you're seeing, what you're saying. From,
And you can even, use like, Moorish North Africa, Moorish Spain, you know what I mean? The golden age of West Africa, you know what I'm saying? Like any of those, or, or East Asia, but kind of just taking, and I'm sure they're pulling from just all over the world, but obviously, the first that come to mind, are the ones that have been kind of centered, in Western culture, you know what I mean? Obviously, and it does immediately harken to, that. To me, it also harkened to like, the Roosevelt administration and the Eisenhower administration. There was a lot of investment, you know what I mean? Investment, in infrastructure. You talk about that, like the Starlight Beacon, for example, you know what I mean? These huge infrastructure projects. And there's the Chancellor Assau is the Chancellor at the time. And, it's a time of unity. It's like we are one republic, and a kind of a we are one kind of vibe that, is kind of, in the galaxy, at that moment, and it kind of just gives you, the sense of, a lot of those like golden ages, you know what I mean? It was the gold, like literally it was the golden age of, you know what I'm saying? everything. You know what I'm saying? And again, you know, there was a lot more leniency, you know, with the Order, where the Jedi, you know, particularly the Padawans, you know, had romantic relationships. And I think one of the feelings was, as the Order got more rigid, that's probably how they lost some of the, you know, the balance with the Force, because they lost the ability to feel, you know, that human intimacy, you know, to at least experience that, you know, for a period of time. You know, it gives you a much more connection to the whole, you know, human experience.
Right, man. No, man, you know what I'm saying? Definitely, man. Cats gotta love, man. You know what I mean? You know, and that's kind of, it's interesting though, like out of that though came Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean? I always thought that was interesting. Like, okay, this was banned, but out of this forbidden union between Anakin and Padme, you know what I mean? Padme comes Luke Skywalker, the savior. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of interesting twists of what's happened, you know. And how do you get Jedi? You know what I'm saying? How do you get top Jedi? Well, you have to procreate, right? So like, you know what I mean? Like, so that whole thing was just kind of always kind of a little off, and you can see why they fell. I wanted to kind of just talk about the Bad Batch a little bit real quick. Ari. I watched the episode again, Clone Wars, the Bad Batch episode the other day, actually. Just looking at it and checking it out for clues. And it was interesting, man. There's two things that happened in the Bad Batch. It's going to be interesting for the series, I think. One is Anakin asked the head of the Bad Batch, the commander, who do you answer to? And he's like, I don't know. That's a good question. So as we move forward, that's interesting. And then during one of the battles, Anakin does just some crazy Anakin stuff. I mean, like, Anakin in Clone Wars is off the hook, by the way. His Jedi stuff is just off the hook. It's just classic all throughout the whole series. And anyway, so Anakin does some stuff, right? They knock down some clones. They clear out an area, and one of the Bad Batch clones says, "You know what? It's hard to compete against the Jedi because they were like fighting their own. They were fighting in one area, and Anakin was fighting in another area. Anakin knocked his area out first." And then they looked at him and he's like, "Yo, he did it first." And then the commander was like, "Yeah, it's hard to compete with a Jedi." And they were looking at Anakin. So again, that's a clue right there, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, in Bad Batch, man, these cats are going to be the cats that's hunting down Jedis, yo.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The Bad Batch is going to be the ones. That's the crew that hunts down the Jedis after Order 66, and I feel that's what the whole series, Bad Batch cartoon series, is going to be about. Is them going out hunting Jedis down, which is enormously dope if they do it like that. You know what I'm saying?
Have you seen the trailer? Have you seen the trailer for the
I've seen the trailer. Yes.
Yeah. You know, and you know what I mean. And they got, like, you know, Moff Tarkin, you know, was in the trailer, you know, saying very impressive. So, you know, clearly, you know, the Bad Batch is going to be, you know, deployed, you know, as part of Order 66. And I think that just adds more, you know, I think weight, you know, to the rumors that are already out there, you know, about, this Order 66 project that's been rumored, you know, as well as a Dark Plagueis project, you know, that's been out there, you know, is rumored as well. I think the Bad Batch, I think that's going to be, you know, a great series. We just dropped, you know, the link to the trailer for that, you know, which is really good. And that's another Dave Filoni, you know, project. And for those unfamiliar, you know, the Bad Batch, you know, the name comes from, there's some clones that, you know, in the cloning process had got some mutations that, you know, made them, you know, almost kind of like X-Men, you know, to use a Marvel Comics metaphor. You know what I mean? They had like kind of enhanced abilities beyond, you know, the regular clone army. You know what I mean? And they became kind of a special unit, like the 18, kind of like some, you know, grizzled, you know, kind of mercenary soldiers for hire, you know, and the next chapter in their story is going to take place, you know, as agents of the Empire.
Yeah, special operatives. You know what I'm saying? They're the special ops crew that comes through cleans things up, you know what I mean? And each one has, like Kahari says, each one has like almost like a superpower, you know. You can see they can kind of get up with the Jedi, you know what I mean? Kind of, because you know, each one, you know, has a heightened sense of awareness. Another one is extremely intelligent, you know what I'm saying, knows like all these languages, can break it down, you know. Another one is like super strong, you know what I'm saying, can like lift
Right.
up like a whole truck, and you know, so it's off the hook, you know what I mean? And I think that series tied into all the other series is going to be very, very interesting, you know, from that perspective, and seeing it from that perspective, because and even with the Plagueis stuff, because you know, looking at, you know, the history of the content, you know, it's always come from the perspective of the Jedi, or perspective of the, you know what I'm saying, of the Republic, right? Or the perspective of coming from one perspective, and we're looking at it
Right.
from one perspective and looking at, oh, that's Darth Maul, oh, that's Darth Sidious, you know, and we get a glimpse of their perspective, but we're still looking at it. It's still being couched from a perspective of the light side, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? And so to have all of this, to have new content coming from that perspective, another perspective, is key and will be real, real strong. It's something that a lot of people have been calling for years, you know, in the content. It's already been in the books and the video games, you know what I'm saying? And in the comic books, but in as far as the series and movies, we really, really haven't gotten a perspective of a Sith perspective, or a straight Sith movie, or a straight dark movie. You know what I'm saying? Something along those lines that kind of balance out the whole Star Wars universe. And I think that's where they're going, and that's a good sign. That's a good road to be on, you know?
Right. 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 Yeah. So, you know, that's kind of a quick breakdown of, you know, the High Republic. You know, talked a little bit about the Bad Batch. You know, we're going to have a bit of a more abridged, you know, version today. You know, we are without the Nathaniel and, you know, Big Phil today. But one of the things I did want to say as we jump into Star Wars news, is that, you know, there's rumor about Robert Downey Jr. playing Thrawn. You know, was out there this week, you know, which I think would be very interesting. And obviously, given his relationship with Marvel Studios, you know, it wouldn't be much for Jon Favreau to make that phone call. You know what I mean?
Man, I think he's already made that call, man. I think they already
You know
made
what
that
I'm
call. I think they already made that call. You know what I'm saying? Kahari?
saying?
I think the conversation's already been broached. You know, I think he would be
Right.
an incredible Thrawn. You know what I mean? Like, just knowing the character from Star Wars Rebels, I mean, he would be an incredible Thrawn. I didn't even think about him playing Thrawn. You know what I'm saying? But I saw that rumor, and if that goes through, that would be incredible, and it would be a coup for them, because
Right.
it will bring in. I mean, and I think where they're going, they want to blend. Obviously, Disney. This is good business marketing tactics. They want to bring in Marvel heads too. You know what I'm saying? They want to bring in
Right.
those Marvel cats, because those Marvel movies have been successful. You know what I'm saying? So they want to bring in those Marvel fans, and they're looking to model all they're doing on the Star Wars side on the Marvel side. And you see Favreau, you know, he's doing that constantly. You know, so yeah, man, I think that would be great. I ain't mean to cut you
Right.
off, man.
No, 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 no. You were super on point, man.
Yeah.
Super on point. Yeah. So I just thought that was like, you know, super, you know, super interesting, you know, that his name, you know, has come up in, you know, in the mix. And, you know, we are, yeah, you know, and Kevin Feige is, you know, also, you know, working with Disney too. And I was just looking at, you know, actually, you know, article with him, because his project is moving forward.
Right.
Has worked on Loki, is going to be also working, with Kevin Feige, the executive producer involved with Loki. I'll tell you his name in 1 second. Michael Waldron, writer and executive producer behind Loki, is also going to be working on whatever comes of, you know, the Kevin Feige project as well. You know, so you can see just a lot of you know, a lot of pieces, you know, moving. You know, you know, that's some of the latest news.
Well,
I thought it was a really cool article in the New York Times just about kind of just the leniency of Star Wars with letting people do fan films, you know, and cutting up their material and editing their material. I'm gonna drop an article about that where it's like very unique. Like, most franchises, like you can't go on YouTube and
Right,
see
right,
like a 2 hour recut version of a movie
right,
and they not take it down. You know what I mean? And
right.
you know what I mean? So that's another just dope thing, about, Star Wars with all the pluses and the negatives and Lucasfilm. So I just wanted to drop that as well. Just, you know, because I mean, they drop, people be dropping trailers all the time, and you don't know if it's a real trailer or a fake trailer. Like the Obi-Wan that got dropped a few months ago, because they're taking stuff from a couple different movies that Ewan McGregor was in. Because I know there was one, like a biblical era one that he did, like he's out in the desert. They just flipped that, they cut that,
Right.
you know what I'm saying, with some Star Wars stuff, and they made it look like, yo, you know what I'm saying.
That joint was tight, man. That joint was live, man. That joint had
Right,
me open, man. I was like, yo, is
right,
this real? You know what I
right.
mean? I was posting it and whatnot. Like, yo, this joint. Nah, man, that ain't a real joint. It's like somebody had to tell me, you know what I
Right.
mean?
You know what I mean? So I thought that was just really cool that that they, took a moment to, just acknowledge that, and folks can get a feel for how lenient, they are, with the franchise and letting fans get in there, and chop up these films, because I know there's some versions, yeah, of the prequel trilogy that get a lot of props. No, there's definitely the Jar Jar Binks, the versions where where like every scene, with Jar Jar Binks is removed. You know what I'm saying? Particularly the first two movies. You know what I'm
Right, right.
saying? You know what I'm saying? So, and like I said, you can go on there, you can watch whole versions of the prequel trilogies of people chopping up stuff they didn't like about it, re-editing the film. You know what I'm saying? In a way that they liked it better, and no other studio is gonna let you do that.
Mm. No doubt. Nah, man, I kind of wanted to ask you real quick though before we get off about a conversation that we was jumping off yesterday. I mean, this is pertaining to the news, but the influence. I thought that was kind of interesting. Maybe we could delve back into that again in coming
Sure.
weeks. Just this overall Star Wars influence on like movies, franchises, like
Right.
we named like old, like very like old series called Battlestar Galactica, which is like this old. It was only one season. Some people may, if you're old enough, you may remember it or have you, but
Right.
a lot of people remember Aliens and remember Terminator. So he had dropped something about a couple days ago about Aliens and Terminator being inspired by George Lucas and Star Wars, and I thought that was interesting. A lot of people don't really make that connection,
Right. Yeah, and I just dropped it in the comments. Yeah, now there's Ridley Scott, right after he saw, Star Wars, you know what I mean? He immediately kind of, changed his whole, perspective as a filmmaker. And the next project that he did, was Alien. And it was directly influenced by, him seeing the possibilities, because up until, A New Hope dropped, science fiction was kind of always looked at as a kind of a childish genre, a genre that could make a lot of money, more importantly, to the studio. The highest grossing sci-fi film up to that point had been Planet of the Apes. And that was kind of, probably considered the zenith, of what you could do in the science fiction realm, particularly in the 1970s when a lot of realism and gritty realism was kind of, the type of films, period pieces, but just a lot of realism. The Godfather, Serpico, you know what I mean, Taxi Driver, you know what I mean? You just think about like what are, considered the great movies of the mid 70s. There's all these gritty films.
Even Rocky.
Yeah, even Rocky. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Like, just realism. A lot of those stories, like, New York, Philly, like the cities that they're filmed in are a character. Those kind of stories, and obviously Star Wars, is totally goes against the grain. You know what I'm saying? So, but when people saw, what was possible, with science fiction, I think it opened up, you know what I mean, a lot of people's ideas. And then obviously James Cameron, was influenced, by Alien. You know what I mean? So kind of
Mm,
like Lucas influenced Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott influences Cameron. You know what I'm saying? And go
mm,
from there, to the next levels of sci-fi. But then you look at Lucasfilm and Industrial Light and Magic. Terminator and all those films. They did the special effects on those things.
right, right, right.
They were always connected. I mean, you could
Right.
check out the article of like how Star Wars created Ridley Scott, who then inspired James Cameron. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And you know, and one of the other things I did want to mention was in
Real
in
quick, let me add to that, Kahari. One the deep thing
yeah,
before you
right,
go on about aliens and Terminator is funny because
right,
in the 90s, early 2000s, Terminator then influences video games, Star Wars video games, you know what I'm saying? And
right,
influences like that whole era, you know what I mean? Because Terminator was just like smashing in the 90s, you know what I mean? So it influences, it comes back and re-influences Star Wars going forward in the video game type of and comic book type of realm, you know? So I thought that was interesting that you brought that up, you know?
right, right,
And we saw the influence in the Mandalorian, you know what I mean, with the Black Troopers, you know what I'm saying? That whole influence is from a 90s video game that was influenced by the Terminator, so on and so forth. So that's kind of how everything came full circle, or is coming full circle with this. And it's interesting that Lucas, they did the special effects anyway. So it's like
right.
all of that stuff comes full circle, man. So I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to add that though.
No, 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 no. That was
Yeah,
dope.
yeah.
Yeah, like so, like in the last 10 minutes or so, one of the things I did want to mention was, and I just dropped it in the comments as well, is in the High Republic book, and I'm not going to mention everything because I actually kind of gave myself a spoiler because I am doing the audio book right now. But there is a force ability that was put into canon in the book, called the battle meld, which gives force sensitive beings tremendous abilities to kind to meld minds with Jedi from past, present. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And do amazing feats such as Skywalker, in the Last Jedi. You know what I mean? Where you could project oneself, across the galaxy. So there's a part in Light of the Jedi that also deals with that. But for obviously for hardcore Star Wars fans, that was obviously dope. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But it was able to kind of Jedi kind of come together across the galaxy and kind of almost like the Vulcan mind meld, for lack of a better term.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting. There's definitely new content out there right now. I'm definitely interested to see what the comic books here from y'all, how the comic books, and I'll be reporting back on how this book unfolds with the Starlight Beacon, and no Yoda yet. I haven't run into Yoda. I don't know if Yoda is in Light of the Jedi. I know
Mm.
Yoda is in, I think I know he's in like the teen book, because I
Mm.
know like he
A
deals
a
with,
younger Yoda, yeah, younger
yeah,
Yoda.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. He deals with like some younger Padawans, and it's kind of a story more catered to a younger audience. So, which kind of makes sense to kind of introduce the younger kids who are less familiar with Yoda to those kind of characters, and have the hardcore heads introduced to newer characters and new stories.
It's interesting though, real quick, that they brought back the mind melt, because that stuff comes from the novels. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
exactly.
Like a lot of those
Yeah,
force abilities come from the novels and of the 90s and 2000s. Those new force abilities that they put in the canon. And then supposedly that got like outlawed by the Jedi Order. So it's good, that it's interesting that they're bringing it
right,
back. You know what I mean? Because maybe somehow, some way, it may uh bleed over into the Disney Plus content. You know what I'm saying? And we may get into some of that with the Ahsoka series, because the Ahsoka series is supposed to delve deeply into all of that force stuff, and the light and the dark, and and Filoni really wants to kind of add, you know, more of a spiritual aspect to the Force and not
Right.
make it look like it's like magic, you know what I mean? And it kind of wants to connect it all. And that's like the original concept that George had of the Force and so on and so forth. So they're really, really looking to delve back into that. They feel that this is something I came across that they feel like that got lost along the way. And so they really, really want to kind of reintroduce that. So it was interesting that in the High Republic books are doing that, and because I know that on the Filoni side, he's definitely pushing that stuff. You know, bringing back all of those traits and kind of making the Force much more of a deep diving into it more. You know what I mean?
Right.
Explaining it more, and kind of having more of an explanation in these new shows. You know, particularly the Ahsoka
Right.
series, like I said. Yeah.
Right. Like you said, where they're more like people of faith than sorcerers.
Right. Even on the Sith side too. You know what I'm saying? Because they're all connected. You know, and those like Carl. You know, we've been in this, man. You know, the Great Jedi and what have you. And we know that there's a lot of a lot of gray areas, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? When it comes to the Force, that really hasn't been dealt with yet. You know, and there's a lot
Right.
of there's a lot of unknowns there as well, and a lot of misconceptions about it. You know, so yeah. Just,
Right. 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 Yeah. The last few minutes, that we have, I did want to, um, mention, again, what I find so interesting is this kind of intersection of these three stories that we're going to have in the next couple of years of Ahsoka, Rangers of the New Republic, and then the eventual resuming of and conclusion of the Mandalorian, as we go into 2022. So, as we learn more, about these projects, we're definitely going to, share them. Is there anything recently that you heard, Luke?
oh, you went out. Uh, the most recent thing I've heard was what I said earlier. You know what I mean? As far as the Civil War piece and what's going to be happening with that. What I mean by the Civil War is Civil War and Lucasfilms. I heard that George Lucas is going to be taking over, pretty soon for like a short time period, and then it's going to be handed over to someone else. Oh, you're back. It's gonna be handed over to someone else. So I heard that. George Lucas is going to be taking over at the end of the year, actually, and it's going to be kind of the intermediate head of Lucasfilms until they find someone else that works real closely with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. There's rumors that Jon Favreau will be the head of Lucasfilms. Just stuff that's out there about that. But it's already, you can already see that it's already been done. You know what I mean? They've already infused a lot of the material that they wanted to infuse. And I heard that The Mandalorian was kind of like a dry run. Like the first season, they let them do it, and like that Kathleen Kennedy didn't really care about it. She was just like, "Oh yeah, whatever. This is little series that's they're just having fun with that. It's only going to only be a couple episodes," and they weren't expecting it to blow up the way it did. So the fact that it blew up the way it did gave Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni a lot more leverage to make the moves that they made. You know what I mean? So by the time the second season rolled around, they got a lot more leverage and a lot more leeway to do what they need to do. And obviously, you saw that leverage bringing Luke back. You know what I mean? Like that was the ultimate like checkmate. Like bam. We running this. You know what I'm saying? And so I think the stuff that we hear online and the stuff that we hear in the books, I mean, in the magazine or online, mainly from all the stuff that's going on with Lucasfilm, I think that's like a month, like that happened a couple months ago. Like if we hear something like, oh yeah, they may be talking to Robert Downey Jr. about like, yo, that already happened, he already said yay or nay, that happened this summer, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like the news that we get or the news that you see online about cats, insiders, what have you, that's like months old, really, you know what I mean? So I just kind of wanted to drop that, you know what I mean?
Right.
What's coming up and what's happening, and we can kind of feel and you can kind of see what's going on. And the last thing I'm going to say, Kahari, is that I saw an article on the merchandising side, you know, that Disney was losing mad money on the merchandising side with Star Wars, yo. I mean, they was losing mad money. Like toys is just like getting dusted up. Like nobody's buying nothing, and that they had to re-kick the merchandising of it. And it was interesting that they didn't put Grogu out until the second season, right? The first season they kind
Right.
of like they didn't merchandise them, you know what I mean? But the second season they merchandised them, and it became one of the biggest top selling toys this past Christmas, right? And so just on the business side, they were losing mad money when it came to merchandise, and that they had to really kickstart that. And with the Mandalorian series and all these other series, they're really kickstarting that and bringing
Right.
those back. And there's a talk of bringing a younger Luke back, like a younger version of Luke toy, you
Right.
know, as far as a toy, bringing that back as well. So
Right.
I kind of came across that, wanted to share that with you. I thought you found that interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. That's super interesting, because it
Yeah.
definitely is, a huge market for, middle-aged Star Wars fans.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To jump
Right.
on, the
Right.
merchandise.
Right.
You know,
eBay, yo.
you
eBay, yo.
yeah,
Definitely, man.
eBay. I just sent around the what was that? The carbonite freezer.
Right. Right.
You know
Right.
what I'm saying? That they're
Right.
selling. It's like $20 or somewhere.
Right. Right.
The Han Solo carbonite freezer. So it's that kind of stuff. That it has a huge market. In the marketplace. Particularly for people over the age of 40. And that's one of the things they also found was that the biggest market for a lot of these stuff, they're not looking at them as toys, but more so looking at them as collectibles.
Yeah.
And
Artifacts. Exactly. Yep.
and the merchandise that came out of post Disney out of the post Disney merger, hasn't had the same pool. You know what I mean? The characters, the merchandise and stuff like that. It hasn't had the same pool. You know what I mean? But like Mando, Grogu, that stuff is back in that wheelhouse of stuff that
Yeah. Boba Fett, Ahsoka, all
Yeah.
of that stuff is like, Bo-Katan. Come on, man. Moff
Right.
Gideon. Come on, man. They got like these characters have like now they're in Star Wars lore now. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
the way they develop, they can definitely flip them in merchandise.
Right.
In the future. So yeah, man.
Right. Yeah. So let's just have a couple last final comments. Thanks to everybody for joining us. This is episode 5. Of Lando's Palace. We talked about the High Republic. We'll just do a quick recap. We talked about the High Republic, and the Light of the Jedi. The first adult book by Charles Soule. It's about the Starlight Beacon, which is the space station that is being installed by the Chancellor to connect the Middle Rim and the inner rim, the central core, the core world to the outer rim. You know what I mean? And there's this event called the Great Disaster that happens, which I haven't got to yet. Which then I guess which is the very beginning of a much longer saga, right? Because it's 200 years before the Phantom Menace, so it's kind of like up until this point, this has been the goal to the Age of the Jedi, and I just assume that now the Light of the Jedi kind of is the first kind of chapter in this 200-year saga that then culminates in Revenge of the Sith. Look at it that way.
That's dope, man.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you the final, the final take, and we'll get ready for episode 6 next week.
Definitely, man. Nah, man. Just I'm gonna be looking in some Star Wars Rebels this coming week. You know what I mean? Just delving in a few episodes, looking for some insight and some things going forward in the Mandalorian. Looking at the last season of the Clone Wars, I think Filoni dropped a lot of eggs when it comes to like where we're going with the Mandalorian series as well as the Boba Fett series. And I think there's some definitely jewels in the Star Wars Rebels last season as well. So we're going to be checking for that and just kind of going back to that. And so I might have some insight next week. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. And also we're gonna, connect the dots again with the Ridley Scott conversation, James Cameron, and kind of how, Star Wars, really impacted sci-fi films and created a whole new generation of not only filmmakers but films, as well as, a whole generation of special effects, experts and technicians.
And yo, Kahar, you gonna kind of premiere your K-Most joint, bro? Though, right? Yeah, I saw you about to drop, right? Y'all about to drop? You and Jim? Y'all about to drop? What's up?
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be later in the spring, you know what I'm saying? Because soy sauce is soy sauce got to get the studio back up, you know what I mean? So that's been a major delay, that's been a major delay. But yeah, no, but definitely check for Selecta and K-Mo. Shout out to Selecta. You can catch him on Twitch, pretty much on a daily basis, but yeah, just Google Selecta, go on Twitch, hit up Selecta, James Scaletti, shouts out to him. Shout out to my brother Nere, who was in the comments earlier. Everybody who's going to check out the replay, you can always check out us live Sundays at 11 a.m. But you can also, on Facebook, Lando's Palace, on Twitter, Lando Palace, and then you can check out all the episodes at landospalace.live on YouTube. You know what I mean? So, any of those places, you can check us out. This was a little bit shorter version, and we're going to start, playing around with some formats, looking at having some guests and things like that. So, as we, move through, this downtime, as these new projects get on, and we look at old stuff, and we probably do some top 10 episodes, and and some stuff like that, as we look, to the spring and summer. But until next Sunday, this is Kahari Mosley with my man Lukman Abdul Salam. Shout out to Nathaniel Broadus, and DJ Big Phil. This is Lando's Palace, and as we always say, with Dang Rimmet, Mud Scruffer, McClunky, and all that stuff. So have a great week, y'all. Peace.
No doubt. Peace.